So I just want to state in the beginning kind of our experiences of electric vehicles are here, you know that. They're very fun to drive. I talk from my own experience, of course, but also that we know from all the drivers that we have that they believe that EVs are much appreciated, and they are fun to drive, and they're very satisfied with the vehicles that they have. We can also see that the ordinary parking place of the car, the EV, is where you like to charge, and it's where you charge most of the times. And it's the most important charging place. It's nice not to have to go to the filling station. I get that from a lot of the EV drivers in the city, that there used to be a talk who's going to take the car to fuel it, and now you don't have to discuss that anymore because you charge when you're not using it, and it's very convenient. And also, we see that public charging is important because it makes the EV drivers feel more secure, and there is a constant need or ask to get more public charging. It does create less range anxiety. A person who have driven a electric vehicle for a while doesn't have range anxiety. That's what I experience and what I hear. It's more people that haven't driven. So when you're supposed to start, you're really looking for electric charging all over the place. And it also creates a lot of visibility for electric vehicles if you have public charging. And we can also see in the city that public charging would help us to maybe use the electric vehicles longer for 2 shifts, for instance, and actually operate longer hours with them. So there is a great need for public charging, despite the fact that most of the times you charge during night. So it's a little conflict of interest there that maybe other speakers will also touch upon. This is me again. I'm just showing pictures of myself. But I drove my first electric vehicles in 1994. That's when I started working for the city. And the city had, at that time, purchased 10 electric vehicles, and there was one at my office that I could use. And this is me fast charging in electric vehicles, probably 15 years old. And this is not what fast charging looks like anymore, but it just shows that we've had 4 fast charging units in Stockholm at that time. So we were already working in the 90s, and we're still at it. The politicians have said that we should be an EV city by 2030, and we have a clean vehicles and fuel strategy in order to make that happen. So I'm going to run through now our main topics in that. It's the electric vehicles, it's the public charging infrastructure, it's also the incentives and knowledge that we spread around. So we have vehicles in our own fleet. We don't have a very large fleet. There's 39,000 people employed in the city. We have about slightly below 800 vehicles. We do have a lot of EVs, 70 of them, and we think we're going to get about 20 more this year. We have one demonstration car, the pink car that you see here, that we different authorities or administration and companies within the city, city-owned companies, can use for up to 2 weeks and try. And it's been very beneficial when it comes to spread the word about electric vehicles. If you use it and try it for 2 weeks, you want to keep it. So you want to buy your own after that. And we have goals from the city council on how many vehicles we should have in our fleet. We're also starting like a car sharing scheme. There will be electric vehicles in a carpool at our office, and these vehicles will be able to, and also other clean cars, I should say, so that the people working at my office can use. But it will be also open to the public because it's an external party that runs the carpool. So I could be a member privately and use it on weeknights and weekends if I want to. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. I'm also going to talk to you about the electric vehicle procurement. That has been one of our major activities throughout the past years when it comes to electric vehicles. It's a cooperation within the City of Stockholm and Vattenfall, energy utility company. We have SKL Commentus, which is an authority that knows how to do procurements and help cities that do joint procurements and are very good on the legal works. We have funding from the Swedish Energy Agency, and we have some help from the Royal Institute of Technology and so on when it comes to data collection and analyzing it. So why did we do the procurement? Well, we wanted to make sure that these vehicles came to Sweden. We know they were coming, but we didn't see a large interest in Sweden of selling them here. They were all going to California and Tokyo and London, and they didn't appear here. So we wanted to put Sweden on the map. We wanted to get these vehicles on the roads. We also wanted to make it easy and simple to acquire these vehicles, especially for cities that has to do public procurement. And if you're a small city and maybe you just want 3 or 4 vehicles, you don't really go through the hassle of making a large procurement activity. So it would be a good way to help each other, so to say, to make one procurement instead of 300. So it was a lot of savings of cost and time. We started with a test fleet of 50 vehicles. We wanted to try and display, and it was very good to do that because we learned a lot when it comes to evaluation and so on that we could correct when the regular fleet have come around. We have about 400 participating organizations, and there is funding also available for the first cars. And the funding is actually gone by now, so we have, but we have all these vehicles now that we can get data from. The vehicles that are in the procurement that you can buy is that it's 2 different plug-in hybrids. It's the Chevrolet Volt. It's also the Mitsubishi Outlander. Then it is the van, Renault Kangoo. It comes in 3 different versions. And then it is the Mitsubishi i-MiEV or the Citroën C0, same type of car. And the newcomer that's just being delivered in a month or so, it's the Renault Zoe. So we haven't had much experience with that yet, but it's coming, and it's quite popular to start ordering that.
Will you all be in that car?
Well, we haven't tried really, but I don't think it would be illegal. There's only 5 seats in there. So I have just, the joint procurement is described. I think the material, is the material here? Yeah? No, it's not here, but it's on the website. So you can download it, and it actually goes through exactly how many bids we got and if they were qualified and not, and how it made. So if you're doing a procurement yourself, you can look into this. There's also a Swedish website that I mentioned here that has some English translation that also has a lot of information. And if you're Swedish speaking, you should go to that site because you have all the information there. So now we have the vehicles running. They run in all different kinds of operations, all throughout the nation, actually. And we have a lot of cities using them. We have a lot of real estate companies that uses them for service and maintenance, a lot of energy utility companies that use them. And now we are gathering the experience. We have an ongoing evaluation of 350 that we have started to gather. We have more vehicles now, but we haven't concluded the data from all the vehicles yet. Renault Kangoo is the most wanted vehicle so far. It's because we have a lot, it's used as a service vehicle a lot, and it's a perfect type of car that is used. For instance, our fleet of almost 800 cars, half of them are vehicles like this. Because in a city like Stockholm, a lot of us can go public transport or bike for work, but when you have a lot of things with you, this is the type of car that, then you need a car, and this is the type of car that you want to have them. So together, these 350 vehicles have driven about 35 laps around the world right now. So we have all this data that we have been analyzing, and the vehicles work very well. And both the drivers and the fleet managers are very happy, and we can see that a lot of the vehicles that were purchased in the beginning was you bought a single vehicle because you wanted to try. And a year later, a lot of the buyers came back and bought 10 vehicles or 5 vehicles. So they're happy drivers and happy users that come back. We made different surveys. We asked the drivers what they think about the vehicles. And they're very happy. 85% recommend others to drive an electric vehicle. 78% are more positive after driving than before they received the vehicle. So they're more positive now since they've been driving it. And I think that's also a very good credit to the electric vehicle. 33% say that they could actually consider or would like to have an electric car also privately. It would work for them to have it privately. Price-wise and so on, maybe that's not why they're not buying one, but it would work for them and they would like to have it. 87% of them are content with the charging, and they charge at work because all of these vehicles are for work reasons. But we have a lot of energy, we have a lot of engine block heaters in Sweden where we preheat our petrol car. So access to electricity is very common in Sweden. And the Swedish Energy Agency have said that 65% of the households in Sweden have access to charging a car. And we wanted to see if that was true. So 62% said they could actually charge an electric vehicle at home. They don't do it because it's a car that they use for work, but they could do it. So it's interesting. It's actually true that there is a lot of charging available out where people live. And also the number of drivers that thought that range is a problem has decreased between the surveys. When a lot of people thought it was a problem in the beginning, have now realized that it works very well. If we look at the EV development, we see a large growth, but there's still very low numbers. So percentage-wise, we are increasing a lot, but in numbers, we're not so. I mean, 4,500 vehicles out of a vehicle fleet for 4.6 million cars in Sweden. So percentage-wise, we're not doing so good, but it's really something is happening, and there were over 400 vehicles registered in April in Sweden. So there's a lot of things have happened just the last months, actually. The national EV procurement have done a lot. In 2012, we had 25% of the sales were within our procurement. And right now, we have about 10% of the vehicles in whole Sweden running around are within our procurement, and that we evaluate. So I think the lessons we learn is very good and good to share. So I'm moving into driver's experiences. I'm coming into charging that way as well. And range anxiety is something that's always mentioned when you talk about electric vehicles. And I think it's interesting how new technology brings new wordings into the world as well. So range anxiety is the fear that a vehicle has insufficient range to reach the final destination. And our drivers, some of them, in the beginning, yes, they do feel range anxiety, but no, after a while, they don't anymore. So experienced drivers don't feel the range anxiety. And I think that's an interesting thing to take into consideration. When something is new, the fear is there, but when you know the technology and used it for a while, the situation is different. It also depends on where the vehicle is placed and how you communicate this to the driver. One municipality here on the top, it's right outside of Stockholm, and they tell their drivers, if you have an errand within the municipality, use an electric vehicle. If you're going outside the municipality, take any other of the clean vehicles that we have in our fleet. So it's very easy for the driver to choose the right car. We also have some vehicles that operate. This vehicle is operating on an Air Force base in southern part of Sweden, and they feel it's very good. They don't have any petrol stations at the Air Force base, but they have lots of electricity. And with the older car that they had to leave the base, and when they go back, the super controlled, this everything. So it took a long time to get the vehicle to. Nobody wanted to go with it to the fueling station. So there are places where the electric vehicle is superior in many ways. We can also see that there's increased use of the vehicles. We get data collection every month from these vehicles, and we can see that they operate longer times. We can see that the same driver comes back and uses the vehicle more as the time goes by, and the new drivers comes in and use it. So it seems like they're more and more appreciated and more used. And we can see that test driving has been very important. The ones that have had test cars, like we do, have had a large increase in the usage of the vehicles. And we can also see that winter and when it's cold outside, this temperature has a negative impact on the range. As heating probably has as well, but especially here we've experienced that cooling has a negative impact. And you have to take that into consideration when you're driving the vehicle in the winter, that you don't reach as far as you do in the summer. We also see that charging behavior, 98% of the charging in this project takes place at the parking place, the ordinary parking place of the car. And this has increased. So it was, in the beginning, it was 88%, and then it increased to 98. So we thought, why is this? So we had some focus group meetings where we met with the drivers and we asked them why this is the case. And there is a very interest initially to experiment. So when you get your car, you drive around to all the public charging points in your neighborhood, and you test them, and you want to see how it works. And then after a few weeks or a few months, you realize you're content with the charging you get at home, and you're done experimenting, so to say. So that was the reason why it was initially so many people testing, and now they're not testing as much anymore. We can also see that different users have different routines. Cars that are in carpools, they charge every time there's a new driver. Of course, that's the routine of the carpool. But if there's an electric vehicle placed with one person, singular, just by me, for instance, for one person, you can see that that person charges maybe once every third day or once every second day, because they know the range and they just charge when they need to charge. So we can see that different usage and different routines is different charging patterns. And we can also see that the range is affected by the way of driving, and that's what they say themselves, the drivers, that they do pay attention on how they drive, and they try to drive very eco-friendly or very energy efficient, because they want to preserve energy and save energy. And they also say that they need to pay attention because the vehicle is silent, more silent when it comes to parking situation and low speed. But we also have drivers that said that nowadays you have to pay attention all the time, regardless of what car you're driving, because people are walking around with headphones in the head all the time, so nobody hears anymore what's going on around them. So you need to pay attention